Oh, yeah, we do. And how much for her? How much should he pay for you? Record them glory days?
The film begins in a special kind of bar called a drop bar. It looks like a regular bar, but secretly, it is a safe place where gangs launder money. Cash moves in and out constantly, carried by secret couriers who take it to its final destination. The bar owners never know when their bar will be used for this purpose, for security reasons. In one of these bars, we meet the main character, a bartender named Bob Saganowski. Bob is a quiet man with a dark past. Beneath his calm appearance, he has a violent side. The bar where he works is run by his cousin Marv, but it is actually owned by the Chechen Mafia. A group of older regulars often come to the bar to drink and talk. As they raise their glasses to remember Richie Whalen, a friend who died mysteriously 10 years ago, Bob pours them another round. Marv scolded Bob, reminding him that the bar was a business, not a charity. He became even angrier when he found out that Bob had let an elderly woman drink for free and smoke inside the bar while he was gone. Bob thought he was just being kind, but in the end he followed Marv's advice. We also learned that Bob is a devout Catholic who goes to church regularly. One evening, on his way home, he heard distressed cries coming from a neighbor's trash bin. When he looked, he found a badly injured pit bull left to die. At that moment, the homeowner, Nadia, came outside curious about the stranger near her property. Bob explained what had happened and asked Nadia to help the injured dog. Still careful, she asked to see his ID and even took a photo of the dog to share with her friends for safety. Finally, they brought the dog inside to treat its wounds. It had many cuts and bruises from severe abuse, but luckily the injuries were not too serious. While they talked, Bob noticed bruises on Nadia's neck. She worked as a waitress and had experience with rescuing animals. They agreed that a shelter might not be the best place for the dog, especially since Bob had already grown attached to it. He convinced Nadia to take care of the dog for a short time, until he could bring it back in 2 days. Near the bar, two brothers talked nervously. They were planning to rob Marv's bar. The older brother felt confident, thinking they needed to show their boss they could handle dangerous situations. The younger brother, who struggled with drug addiction, was scared when he found out the bar was actually controlled by the Chechen Mafia. In the end, the older brother persuaded him. The scene then moves to the bar, where two masked robbers attack just before closing. They point their guns at Marv and force him to put money into a bag. Although he stayed calm and warned them they were making a mistake, Marv had no choice but to obey. During the robbery, Bob noticed that one of the robbers was wearing a broken watch. After it was over, they found the bar employee Randy beaten to death in the backyard. Soon after, Detective Torres arrived to investigate. He recognized Bob because they had gone to the same church for years, even though they had never talked. During the investigation, Bob didn't have much information because the robbers were wearing masks. Still, he mentioned a broken watch that had stopped at 6:15. The stolen money was reported to be around $5,000. Aside from the robbery, Detective Torres was curious about why Bob never took communion at church, though Bob at first denied it. When Torres asked more questions, Bob denied it. In reality, he was ashamed of his dark past and avoided communion to escape confession. Meanwhile, Marv became angry when he found out that Bob had mentioned the broken watch during the investigation, worried it might upset the Chechens. Later, Bob brought the puppy home and asked Nadia to come with him to the pet store since he had never owned a dog before. Nadia chose bowls, a leash, waste bags, and a care manual. Bob suggested naming the dog Rocco, though he personally liked the name Mike. Nadia preferred Rocco, thinking Mike was not a good name for a dog. They made a name tag for Rocco, even though Bob still thought Mike was a better name. The next morning at church, he was surprised to see a statue of Saint Rocco with a dog. After shopping, Bob drove Nadia home, not knowing that a thug named Eric Deeds was secretly watching them from afar. One morning, while the cousins were shoveling snow in the backyard, Chavka, the Chechen Mafia boss who owned the bar, showed up. He said that he had caught one of the robbers. The man had been brutally tortured, gagged, and had his foot pierced and bolted to the floor of a van. Chavka asked Marv and Bob if they recognized the man, but both said no. He also asked how the police had learned about the broken watch, which made Bob apologize. Before leaving, Chavka warned Marv to get the stolen money back. Marv felt pressured, as if Chavka thought he knew how to recover it, suggesting he might have been involved in the robbery. During the investigation, Detective Torres learned that Marv had lost the bar 10 years earlier to Papa Umarov, a Chechen mafia boss and Chavka's father. He talked about this with a colleague from a major crime unit, wondering if anyone was trying to take down Papa. The colleague said the group was too powerful to bring down and joked that Torres could try to prosecute them himself if he wanted. Bob enjoyed having Rocco as a companion. But as a first-time dog owner, he had trouble dealing with the mess when Rocco kept urinating around the house, which meant constant cleaning. One morning at the dog park, while Bob was playing with Rocco, Nadia happened to be exercising nearby. Since she had lost her night shift job, she offered to help take care of Rocco for extra income. Interested in Nadia, Bob accepted her offer, and they exchanged contact information. After they said goodbye, Eric Deeds appeared and complimented Bob's dog. Feeling suspicious, Bob quickly walked away with Rocco. Meanwhile, Marv lived with his sister, Dottie, while their father stayed in a nursing home, brain dead and kept alive by machines. The siblings talked about their father's condition. Tired of the high cost of his care, Dottie suggested ending his life so they could enjoy their own, like traveling to Europe. Marv strongly disagreed, believing they should stay devoted to their father, even if it meant giving up their own comfort. Marv met Fitz, one of the robbers, and confronted him about his part in the crime. He blamed Fitz for his brother's mistake with the broken watch and for beating Randy so badly that Marv had to call an ambulance and involve the police. Marv warned that their bar could soon be abandoned and advised Fitz to carry out the next robbery more carefully. Elsewhere, a suspicious stranger in a car asked Marv for directions to the hospital. Marv gave him the directions but remained cautious. Meanwhile, at Bob's house, he talked to Rocco and apologized for not taking him outside. A knock at the door revealed Eric, who rudely let himself in. Eric asked about the dog, which confused Bob. Eric claimed the dog was his, but Bob disagreed. Eric said that if Bob really owned the dog, he should have the security chip number and the legal papers. He explained that the chip is a small device implanted in the dog to identify its owner. Eric showed the chip's serial number, suggesting he was the dog's legal owner. Bob insisted that Rocco belonged to him and pointed out that Eric had abused the dog. Eric then threatened to call the police. When Bob asked what he wanted, Eric only made vague threats, mentioned the unpredictable weather, took Bob's umbrella, and walked away. Bob and Nadia grew closer because of Rocco. While talking at a cafe, Nadia admitted that Bob was the first person who never asked about the bruises on her neck. Bob felt it was her private matter and not his place to judge. In the end, Nadia opened up about her troubled past. During a drug high, she once cut her own throat with a potato peeler because she hated her addiction and wanted to end her life. Miraculously, she survived and started living a more normal and meaningful life. Meanwhile, at the bar, Marv told Bob he was scared of the strange man who had asked for directions, worried that his life might be in danger. Marv was still haunted by losing the bar to Chavka Umarov almost 10 years ago. His deep self-hatred affected the way he lived. One day, Bob was shocked to find a severed hand and a blood-stained bill in a trash bag. The stolen money had been returned, along with the robber's broken watch and the hand. They were confused, not knowing who had returned the money or why. Bob carried the severed hand into the bar and carefully wrapped it, handling it so smoothly that Marv was impressed, as if Bob had done it many times before. At that moment, Eric suddenly burst in because they had forgotten to lock the door. Marv tried to send Eric away, saying the bar was closed. When Bob almost got caught, Eric just greeted him and left, still watching them with curiosity. Marv started feeling uneasy about the connection between Bob and Eric. When Bob explained that Eric claimed to own Rocco, Marv became even more worried. Eric was a local thug rumored to have killed Richie Whalen, the man they toasted at the start of the film. Marv told Bob that Eric had been in prison and a mental institution, warning him to stay away. But Bob seemed more surprised than scared by this news. He put the severed hand in a cloth bag and left. After Bob walked away, Marv broke down in tears and started cleaning the blood off the money to give to the Chechens. Meanwhile, Bob played with Rocco and threw the bandaged hand into the river. Detective Torres came up to Bob and asked if he knew Eric Deeds, but Bob denied it. Later, the Chechens came to the bar to collect the stolen money. Chavka also said the bar would be used as a drop site on Super Bowl night. Eric confronted Bob, asking about Nadia and whether she had hurt herself recently. Soon after, Bob asked Nadia about her relationship with Eric. The investigation scared Nadia, and she ran away, leaving Bob confused. Meanwhile, Marv met Fitz, who asked to get into his car. Fitz was terrified because his brother had died in a similar situation. He checked Marv's trunk to see if it was lined with plastic and pulled out a pistol. But when Marv opened the trunk, it was completely empty. Fitz, satisfied, got into the car and drove off. Marv suggested robbing the bar on Super Bowl night when a lot of cash would be there, but Fitz refused, saying he just wanted to survive. Marv told him to get out of the car and close the trunk. As Fitz nervously stepped out, Marv hit him repeatedly with the car, killing him instantly. Marv then left, switched cars, and drove away. In the next scene, Bob and Nadia made up, and she apologized for her earlier behavior. She admitted that she had once dated Eric. At first, he seemed kind, but over time she realized how terrible he really was, which led to their breakup. Nadia warned Bob that Deeds was the one who had killed Richie Whalen, though Bob already knew this. Later, Marv met Deeds in a diner and told him that Bob was afraid of him. Eric said he wanted more respect from Bob or there would be trouble. Marv reassured him, saying he had a plan that would work for everyone. In fact, Marv planned to have Fitz take part in the Super Bowl heist instead of Eric, keeping Eric busy so he wouldn't bother Bob. Detective Torres met an old colleague and got Eric's psychiatric file, where one detail stood out. At home, Bob called for Rocco but got no answer. Bob found Rocco safe inside a wooden crate along with his umbrella, proof that Eric had been there. He confronted Eric, told him to back off, and insisted he would not give Rocco back. Eric demanded $10,000 for Bob to keep the dog, but Bob refused, saying it was too much. Later, Marv told Bob that he would not be at the bar during the Super Bowl. Bob suspected that Marv was planning a reckless scheme they couldn't manage. Marv, still obsessed with the respect he had before losing the bar to Chavka, grew angry. He became paranoid, thinking Bob had given his old stool to an elderly woman to humiliate him. Bob insisted it was just a normal stool with no special meaning. At the bar, Bob hid $10,000, Rocco, and a pistol in the basement. Meanwhile, Eric broke into Nadia's home and forced her to go with him to Marv's bar. At first, she resisted, but then she agreed to avoid angering him. That night, they arrived at the bar together, leaving Bob disappointed and Nadia feeling ashamed. Marv called Eric, but Eric was already at the bar because of the commotion. Marv warned him not to underestimate Bob, who was quiet and polite but unpredictable. He then lined his trunk with plastic, drove to the bar, and parked 2 blocks away to watch what would happen. All night, different mafia crews came to deliver money. At last, the bar was empty except for Eric and Nadia. Before going outside for a cigarette, Eric gave Nadia a gun. In tears, she warned Bob that Deeds planned to kill him. Bob offered to pay for Rocco, but Eric asked how much Nadia was worth to him and demanded that the money be locked in the safe. Bob refused and revealed that he, not Eric, had killed Richie Whalen. He explained that Marv had a serious gambling problem, and Richie was just one of many people he owed money to. When Richie won big at the casino and paid Marv back, it still wasn't enough. To cover up the fact that Marv had taken the money, Bob shot Richie twice in the face. As Eric reacted, Bob shot him twice in the face. He told Nadia she was safe and could leave. The Chechens took care of Eric's body, and Chavka gave the bar to Bob, renaming it Bob's Bar. Marv was killed outside, and Detective Torres arrived to investigate. He mentioned the upcoming sale of the church and suspected that Bob was responsible for Richie Whalen's murder and Eric's disappearance.
No one ever sees you coming, do they, Bob?
Bob brought Rocco to Nadia's house, apologized for his past actions, and explained that he had to kill Eric to stop any future extortion. Nadia felt both scared and in love with Bob, and they agreed to start seeing each other.